get so mad, there's no controlling me. My thoughts get so bad, I'm like, I might grab a bat, I don't know. My wrath, my blood boils over like, oh God, here goes. I lost all feeling from my head to my toes. You said some shit that I can't let go, so just stay tuned for the rest of the show. So have you ever felt betrayed?
All right, thank you. All right, maybe seated. Your next question.
Thank you, Your Honor. Michelle, can you bring up Defendant's Exhibit 236, which has already been admitted?
Thank you.
And I'm jumping back to the Boston plane incident just for a moment. We had a lot of different texts and a lot of exchange, but I just wanted to point out to you, this text message is from Mr. Depp to you, correct?
Yes, it is.
And this is on 5/25, the day after the Boston plane incident?
That's correct.
All right, and he is saying, once again, I find myself in a place of shame and regret. Of course, I am sorry. I really don't know why or what happened, but I will never do it again. I want to get better for you and for me. I must. My illness somehow crept up and grabbed me. I can't do it again. I can't live like that again. I know you can't either. And I will for both of us, starting today. I love you. Again, I'm so sorry. So sorry. I love you and feel so bad for letting you down. Do you see that?
I do.
And was that the message that you testified to, that he gave you?
Yes.
Okay. All right, now I'm going to jump back to where we left off. We're up in January of 2015. Danish girl, you're filming in London, is that correct?
Yes, that would have been January 2015.
Okay. Now, we heard some testimony from Isaac Baruch earlier about a telephone call that you had with Mr. Depp. Do you recall that call?
I do.
Can you please tell the jury and remember to tell them what Mr. Depp was saying on that call? And you can give the back. I didn't mean to cut you off on the context. Go ahead.
Is it okay to... The nature of the conversation was pleasant? Friendly, fine, normal. And then Johnny stopped making sense with this. Like, he'd start a sentence and then trail off and act confused when I would be confused. And that pattern kind of increased pretty dramatically in a short amount of time. And I was in a hotel room in London speaking to him in Los Angeles, and the phone, what I assumed, cut off. I thought it was a connection issue. And I remember getting out of bed and walking into the bathroom to get something, and I was redialing him. And in the span of that short amount of time we had been disconnected, it was minutes, not even minutes. I called him back thinking the phone had been disconnected, and he answered and he said, how could you tell me that? How could you say that to me? Who the fuck is he? Who the fuck is he? And he asked me that a few times, and I was so confused. I didn't understand what he was talking about. I expressed that to him. He says, who is the guy, the one in New York that you're fucking? And it was it was such a bizarre conversation because it had already started to feel like he was not making, it was almost as if he was confused by what sentence he had started by the time he got to the end of it. And then all of a sudden he tells me that I have just told him that I had a boyfriend or a lover in New York, and he's accusing me of having just told him about it, which was crazy to me. Not only was that not accurate, I would never have communicated with him like that. More or less called him on the phone to do it and then call him back and wonder what the connection issue was. It was just the most bizarre thing. But he was so worked up, incoherent, and accusing me of having had this conversation with him. Eventually the line drops out, and I spoke to the person who picked up the phone.
Okay. And how did that end?
I no longer spoke to Johnny. I probably can't say what the person told me.
Are we talking about Isaac Baruch?
Yes.
Okay. So without saying what he said, you had a brief conversation with Mr. Baruch, and that was the end of the call?
I did. It was my understanding Johnny was passed out.
Hearsay.
Okay.
Stay.
All right. January 25, 2015, Tokyo. Please tell, it's the premiere of Mordecai, correct? Did you accompany Mr. Depp to Tokyo for the premiere of Mordecai?
I did. When I was...
Please tell the jury about that trip.
Well, I had just started to pick out the wedding dress right before that trip. And plans were moving for us to get married shortly after this trip. So we took this trip to promote his movie. I went with him. We got in an argument in the hotel room, and I said, I don't remember what I said to him, but I said something snotty to him that provoked him. It provoked him, and when I walked into the hallway, he grabbed me by the arm and slammed me up against the hallway wall, and I kind of struggled with him, tried to push him off of me, and I managed to get out of his grasp enough to take a few steps, and I kind of curved around and went into the closet. And by the time I made it into the closet, he had me by the hair, and what felt like he was just wailing on me, but in a really sloppy way, like hitting the back of my head, and kind of wrestled me down to the floor. I mean, it felt to me like I didn't even have a fair shot, because I wasn't facing him or looking at him. I was walking away from him. Or else, I would have at this point even I would have tried to defend myself more, but I didn't. I kind of felt like it didn't see it coming, and he just wrestled me down to the ground. And I remember he was screaming at me. I mean, like really screaming loud. And what I remember of that is trying to get up and him kind of wrestling me back down, and at one point put his knee on my back. It was kind of like kneeling on my back. And I just had this struggle with him. And I look at him and he's still got his glasses on. I just remember looking at him and thinking that was so... he just looked like he hadn't been through anything. He still had his glasses on, sunglasses. And he was screaming at me that he hated me, that it was over, that he didn't want to marry me. He was disgusted. He was disgusted. He made this mistake. It was a big mistake. And everyone hated me. And I remember crying on the floor. Just, more than anything, I was heartbroken. I thought maybe he was serious. I thought maybe, God, he doesn't love me. Maybe he really feels this way. It broke my heart. Broke my heart. I wanted to marry him so bad. This is the man I loved, you know. Yes, it was awful at times, but I loved him and what he was
Objection, Your Honor, non-responsive.
Overruled. What he was saying to me hurt just as bad as anything else. I just remember that he left me on the closet floor, and as embarrassing as it is to say, I went up to him at some point. I don't know how much time had passed. He was sitting at the piano in the living room of the hotel room that we had. I know it may be hard to understand. It's hard for me to hear myself say, but I just wanted it to stop. I wanted things to just be okay. And I just sat next to him on the piano, and I just laid my head on his shoulder, and of course I was mad, and felt it was horrible what he'd done. But on the other hand, I wanted us to be okay. I could just put I could put the physical stuff in a box, and I just kept going back on how much I love this person. So just put my makeup on and went to the premiere with him and walked the red carpet with him. And I remember in the car checking my phone obsessively for pictures because my dress was backless. Of all times to have a backless dress. And then I was just looking at pictures of us on the red carpet. It was surreal because I was checking for bruises and making sure that nothing, like there would be no marks on me, and we just looked like this other thing on this red carpet when it was just... It was not like that. It's embarrassing. You know, it's hard to... I'm sure it's hard to...
Objection, Your Honor, non-responsive.
I also see the objection. Next question.
I'm going to take you to February, the next month, 2015, to your wedding. Can you please tell the jury about your wedding?
So we get married in Los Angeles. I get a sense that it was wedding, running around Los Angeles. I was getting married that day, and I remember running around I went to therapy and, got ready, and Johnny and I met at the Penthouses downtown, and I wore a white dress and a veil. I had bobby pinned in my hair. And I walked out of that penthouse and met with Johnny in the hallway, and I thought he looked so handsome, and he seemed happy, and I felt we were making the right decision. I was so looking forward to having this. I thought we'd get married and we'd have stability. Safety. So we get in the car, we get into actually Johnny's car, and for the second time since I've known Johnny, he drove drove us in his truck. It was weird being in the car with him alone. You know, we didn't have that. And we drove to his mom's house, and a justice of the peace arrived, looking kind of surprised. And she married us in the living room of his mother's house, Betty Sue, with our families together. My best friend, my mom, his mom. We ate food with the kids. They were there. And we had a wonderful evening, and then got up and got on the plane either the next morning or the day after, and flew to Johnny's Island. And we had what we had planned for the better, we had planned for the better part of a year or so, maybe 8 months, for this 3-day wedding on his island with our close friends, about 12 people, maybe 15 people. And we had these little houses built, like not tents, but not houses, these little, for the guests. We had them built and designed on the island, and we had people come out, and it was magic. I was marrying the love of my life. It was complicated, but I thought it was the love of my life. And we had our friends and family out, and we had this 3-day event. The first night of which was supposed to be he and I separate, with our relative party. So me with the bridal party and him with his fellas. The bridal party, we had planned to do a cuddle puddle, have mushrooms and drink wine, and have our own girl party separate. And then the next day have the wedding festivities. We were going to be married around sunset, and on this beach, not the beach that Johnny had named for me, although I think we originally planned on having the ceremony on that beach, but it was changed at some point to the other beach. And we walked down the beach aisle, and said our vows, and the sunset behind us, and we took pictures with our family, and we shot the bird, meaning the middle finger, up at the paparazzi helicopter plane circling around us while we were on the altar. And we danced and celebrated. And then I left the island because I had to go work.
When you say you left the island, you had to go to work, what were you working on that required that?
I was filming The Danish Girl in London, which is the film that I had been in London for in January when Johnny was hallucinating on the phone with me. I was there doing kind of prep work for that film.
And what, if any, film was Mr. Depp going to at that point?
Well, the plan, why we did the wedding when we did it, is because he had always had this commitment to do Pirates 5. And he was going to shoot that in Australia, and I was going to shoot The Danish Girl. And I started The Danish Girl in early February, and he was going to fly out mid-February to Australia. So his movie was going to take the majority of the year, meaning until August. So maybe longer, so that the plan was to do it when we did it, so that we didn't have to wait until the fall of the following year. So shortly after I left, Johnny returned to Los Angeles, and then flew from Los Angeles on to Australia to shoot Pirates 5, excuse me.
Okay. And what was the plan for you when you finished with Danish Girl?
The plan was always for me to wrap on my movie and then come and join him in Australia, where he was filming P5. Pirates 5.
Okay, and when approximately was that?
That was March 3rd.
March 3rd that you wrapped, that you finished with Danish Girl?
I believe, I can't recall the exact date, but I believe it was around that time, yes.
Okay, and then tell the jury, where did you fly to get to Australia? How long of a turnaround was it for you to get to Australia?
It was about 24-hour, I think it's about 24 hours. I could be mistaken on the exact amount of time, but I remember it's quite a distance from London. I was filming in London, he was filming in Australia. Effectively, you have to fly 12 hours, stop, get on a different plane and fly, I think, around the same amount of time, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. So when you arrived, before you finished wrapping with Danish Girl and were heading out shortly before, what, if any, communications did you and Mr. Depp have?
Well, at first it was great. Even though we were separate, it was so hard to leave right after you get married, especially considering that in Johnny and I's relationship, it was always so much worse when I went away to work. That's when problems started. So that was hard, but we communicated pretty consistently, and it was positive until it started to change. And I got the sense that he thought I was sleeping with the director, and then it was with the actor I was filming with.
Who was the actor you were filming with?
Eddie Redmayne.
Okay.
I was not that it mattered, but I could do my best to field the accusations, and then they would kind of subside, and I thought things were okay. And one day, right before I'm supposed to fly to Australia, he, I think it was the night before I was supposed to leave to go to Australia, he calls my hotel room, apparently. I had a sense that the phone was ringing. I think it was in the shower at the time, but not much time had passed, and I get a knock on the door, and it was someone from the hotel that I was staying at. The hotel staff had been sent up to the room because
Objection calls for hearsay and speculation.
I'll sustain the objection.
So don't tell what the staff said. What happened next?
Then I start communicating with Johnny.
And when you say started, I mean, was he on the phone? Did you call him? What happened here?
He called the room and then my cell phone, and then once I was on the cell phone, he was accusing me of not being in my room, so he called the room, and I had to prove that I was in the room because by answering the phone. And we had a lengthy kind of circular conversation about where I was and why I didn't answer the phone. Why I didn't answer the phone immediately. He didn't sound like he was connected to reality. It just didn't seem like, to me, it seemed like a previous pattern. I was unsure what to make of it because he wasn't right in front of me, but he was accusing me of what it seemed like is having, I guess, an affair or a reason to not be in the room that I got a sense from him was cheating or that I was hiding something, and why I wasn't answering the phone, and hence why I got the knock on the door. That was right before I left.
So before you headed to Australia, what, if any, requests did you make of Mr. Depp for him to get you MDMA?
That's ridiculous.
Why is that ridiculous?
Because I would never, since that time I learned my lesson the hard way on the plane to Russia, I would never do MDMA with him. I'm asking for a problem in that case. Like that, I would never do that.
Okay. So you flew to Australia and met with Mr. Depp, right? And I'm going to Can we pull up defendants 1809? And Your Honor, these are some of the pictures that Mr. King, you may recall, was testifying earlier, said he had on his phone.
Okay.
And then those were given, so.
So I don't have these, is what you're saying. Okay, that's fine. 1809.
Correct. I'm just going to show you a few pictures. Amber, do you recognize, and I realize you didn't take this photo. I'm going to move the admission of it, though, Your Honor.
Any objection to 1809?
No, thank you, Your
All
Honor.
right, 1809 in evidence, you can publish.
And let me pass one up and give one to the other side. We tried to, given the strangeness of this. May I put you on?
Yes. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Amber, do you recognize this photo?
I do.
And could you tell the jury what this is?
That is the driveway leading up to the house that Johnny was renting while shooting Pirates 5.
Okay. And then I'm going to try to make this a little faster, and I'm going to go 1810.
Ms. Bretterhoff, if you have a series of photos, if you want to
Yes.
show council what they are, maybe we can get them entered all together, and then you could just
Yes,
go on with your questions.
yes, in fact. And these are all I will represent ones that we got from Mr. King.
All right, if you want to take a look at them.
And Your Honor, if I may just approach, I'll give you the whole stack.
Okay, that's fine.
You can keep that up if you want. By the way, Amber, do you see those kangaroos in there?
When I was pulling up to the house, I saw kangaroos as well.
And this was a pretty big driveway.
It was a
I
pretty
don't have any
isolated.
objection. Sorry.
No objection to any of them?
I don't believe so, Your Honor.
But make sure you look through them all too. I just want to make sure, because
Thank
I'll
you,
go ahead
Ron.
and read them into the record once you have looked through them all. And then
Thank you, Your Honor. I've reviewed them. I have no objection to any of these photographs.
So we'll enter into evidence defendants 1804, 1805, 1806, 1807, 1808, 1810, 1811, 1812, 1814, 1815, 1816, 1817, 1819, 1820, 1821, 1825, 1827, 1828, 1829, 1830, 1831, 1834, 1835, 1837, 1838, 1839, 1840, 1841, and 1842. Did I get them all?
I believe so.
I want to make sure more than believe, so we agree that's all in evidence? Okay. They're all in evidence. So as long as you're just going to be referencing those photos, we'll keep it on before you
Keep it
publish
moving.
them.
Thank you, Your Honor. Appreciate it. Okay. Whose home was this in Australia?
It was I think like a well-known sportsman, racing cars or something of that nature.
Okay. Let's Michelle, if you can pull up 1810. Is this another picture from that home?
Yes, that looks like it's the view from the bathroom.
Okay. And then let's go, Michelle, if you can pull up 1811. Is that a picture of the home?
That's the house, yes.
Okay. And let's go to 1812. And that's
the view from the living room. It opened into a lagoon.
okay. And then let's look at 1813. I guess that's just another view, little over of the swimming pool, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and then let's do one more, 1814. This is inside the house,
Yes.
okay. And if you can look to the back here where I've got I'm making some, what if anything is that back there?
That's the kitchen.
Okay, this is the dining room and this is on the main level?
What we're looking at is the dining room table on the main level with the kitchen in the background.
Okay, thank you. Now I'm going to ask you to take this jury through your experience, what happened in Australia once you arrived there.
Well, I was nervous because of the conversations that I had with him before I left, and then in transit I stopped in Dubai and spoke to him too. So I was a little nervous, but he indicated me that he wanted me to come. He said I missed my wife at the end of the phone call that we had in the airport. I called him from Dubai. And he said, I miss my wife. I felt, okay, safe to, it's good. And I missed him so much, that's all I wanted to do is see my new husband. I flew in, I arrived early. I walked into the bedroom. I was so excited to see him. And he was so, like, he had lost a ton of weight. So I just knew something was up. And he kind of quickly, kissed me and kind of, we had some interaction. It was brief. He was leaving to go work. He had to work that day. But then after the plan was he would come back, which he did in the evening, and then he was supposed to have a 3-day weekend, a long weekend. So he comes back that evening, and the chef had kind of prepared some things for the fridge, mashed potatoes, I think spinach as well. There's some steaks in the fridge, but he had kind of prepped some of the sides. And I was looking forward to having this kind of, our style at-home date. We'd just been, we're a new married couple. We hadn't seen each other for basically a month after getting married. And I start dinner and am happy to see him. And at some point early in that evening, he pulls out a bag of MDMA. I asked him what it was, and he told me it was MDMA. And I was surprised because at the time, that was, there was no question mark as to how I would respond to that, or so I thought. It's like, why would you even think that that's okay? He had already gotten clean and sober. I was, touch and go, but for the wedding, he was drinking Beck's. I think at some point he did have wine on the island, but it wasn't an issue, right? Just moved ahead. So I was surprised that he would even pull out this bag and well, frankly, not hide it from me. And he kind of seemed to suggest that we should do it together. And I was like, absolutely not. Like, I just got here. I want to see you. I want to spend time with you. It was the exact opposite of what I expected, what I wanted. And it just seemed delusional at the time to me that he would even suggest this to be something that I could participate in with him. If you had been through what I had been through at that point, it's crazy. And at some point, he drinks in front of me. At first, I think it was like a Malbec or a wine or something. And I remember we hadn't, like, it kind of started an argument. And that was upstairs in that room that we just looked at a picture of, by the sunflowers. That's more or less where we were standing, just closer to the kitchen. And we get in an argument, and I shove past him, just stomp off. And he grabs me. We have an argument about me walking away, and am I walking out of this? And in my head, I was like, I actually wasn't thinking of leaving yet, but that would later be going through my mind. We had a brief interaction, and I don't remember the exact sequence of things. I wish I did. I have a lot of flashes. It gets a little bit more confusing for my ability to recall everything in a linear way a little later on as things got crazier. But for this part, the first night, what I distinctly remember is at one point, I don't think I had gotten very far. Maybe I came back into the room, but when he shoved me, I went flying across these parakeet floors. I mean, just skidding across these floors. And I remember thinking it just looked so easy for him to throw me around like that, I just slid, screeching my skin against this like beautiful wooden floor. And we had another argument that was a spin-off from that. It was just kind of this on-off sort of thing that I remember eventually in this interaction, he shoves me up against the fridge. He has me by the throat, and he just was holding me there by my throat. And I wondered if it was the drugs. I wondered if it was him. It hadn't, in my recollection, hadn't been that long. He has me up against the throat. He's kind of bashing me against the wall next to the fridge. We're kind of moving in that area. And at some point, I'm in his face. And I don't know if he had let go of my neck or loosened my grip, but I remember slapping him across the face, screaming at him. He's screaming at me. I got my hand free when he tried to grab me when I walked off. I stormed off. I slammed the door upstairs. I don't know if it was in that instance or if it was in a later one that I eventually barricaded the door. It wouldn't stop him from coming in. He could come in the other doors. There's there's a back door, there's patio, but at least I hear it. And this is March 2015. By this time, I'm being medicated by his doctor. He's giving me anti-anxiety meds, giving me, had already tried to give me antidepressants. They didn't work for obvious reasons, I hope. I wasn't sleeping. I had insomnia. I'd wake up with panic attacks. I needed to sleep, but my ability to do so was really, really compromised at this point. And I kept thinking that I just wanted to hear him or know if he came in so I could be aware, so I could be ready for what was going to come in with him. And at some point I go back downstairs. I don't really know at what point I gave up and stayed behind my barricaded door, but I managed to go to sleep. I took some sleeping pills. I woke up, and when I came downstairs, he was still up. He confirmed when I asked him that he had not slept. He had not eaten, so I tried to get him to eat. We get in an argument. He was accusing me of Eddie Redmayne, and by this point, he thought I was working with Billy Bob Thornton on the movie I just shot, but I had already worked with him a year earlier. But he was very upset about him and the gentleman that invited me to a concert in London. You know, my co-star, he was upset about these people, even though I had done that movie a year prior.
Who was that?
It was Billy Bob Thornton, Jim Sturgis, and Eddie Redmayne that he was upset about.
And let me just stop you for a moment. Have you seen Mr. Depp take any drugs by this point?
Oh yeah, sorry if I left that out. When we had the argument about the MDMA, he suggested to me that it wasn't on the no-fly list, like it wasn't on the no list. That was his argument. That was his defense. Like, this isn't the. You didn't say I couldn't have this, and over and over again, Johnny told me I wasn't the reason he was getting sober, but I was the reason he was staying sober. I had saved his life and all this stuff. It wasn't like it wasn't my job to police him, but I kind of ended up being in that situation, it seemed like, in his mind, when he would express that to me. So he took a handful of pills, and I didn't count how many, but when I came back downstairs, I did the math on the amount that was left, and I think it was either 8 or 10, I can't recall as I sit here now, either 8 or 10 pills of MDMA.
That he had taken or that were left?
I remember we had a conversation about the amount that he took. So I remember saying, you
Objection,
took
hearsay.
Okay, I'll sustain the objection. Okay.
There were only a few left in the bag, so I think it was what he took. And I said, Johnny,
Objection, hearsay.
He confirmed that he took that amount and that he could take that amount.
And what amount?
At this point, there were 10. He had taken 10, 8 or 10. I can't recall.
And when you say at this point, is that the first night? Is that the second day?
This is the second day. This is after I've already fallen asleep for the night in the room upstairs. Come back downstairs. He was still awake.
Okay, please continue with that second day.
He was accusing me of being mean to his sister. He was accusing me of not liking his sister. Something about the wedding. I was trying to put out that fire, as you will. I was trying to say, no. First of all, I'm not filming with Billy Bob. No, I wasn't filming with Jim Sturgis. Yes, I filmed with Eddie Redmayne, but he was a lovely gentleman.
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
Let's not offer to prove the truth of the matter.
Overruled. And then when it came up with his sister, he was accusing me of kind of having this animosity with Christy. I tried to defend myself, explaining why her and I had kind of become cold to one another. I don't know how else to describe it, because we never had any sort of direct interaction that was negative. We never had any sort of confrontation or anything, but I did my best to explain to him what I could answer to that accusation. And at one point he, I mentioned that, well, I can't say what I mentioned. He, as a result of that phone call, picks up the phone and calls his agent. I don't know why, still to this day. He calls a few people. I don't know who was on the other line. I just heard his side of it, and he's screaming at them. I got a sense that it was money, that he felt people had been stealing money from him, and that the studio had been ripping him off, and that he was calling himself like a whore, or he had been whored out. He seemed like he was upset, but I did not, at this point, this is maybe early evening, it was before the sun went down on the second day. I remember he took the phone at one point and called my divorce attorney. I had at some point prior to this got a divorce attorney, or not a divorce attorney, a domestic relations attorney to do a post-nup, because we got married in February, and there was never any mention or talk from Johnny about a prenup, but I had interactions with his sister, and so I thought, okay, I'll get a lawyer and let's do a post-nup. When Johnny found out about that, or when I reminded him of that in Australia, he went outside and called my divorce attorney and fired her and said the only way out of this was death. Again. And I heard that already at this point, March 2015, probably 25 times. So he's screaming at her. He calls his agents. I hear him talking incoherently, screaming incoherently at my lawyer and his agent. He comes back inside, and I genuinely didn't know if he was still mad at me or if it was about me at all. I didn't know. It didn't seem like it was connected to reality at all. At some point shortly after that, I have been saying to Johnny, you need to sleep. Let's eat some dinner, baby. Let's relax. Please, like, calm down. In my head, I was thinking that it would genuinely change if he just got some sleep. He needed to sleep it off. He needed to come down off the drugs. Clearly, the combination of what he had taken pill-wise with whatever else he was hiding from me was not good. I had recognized that sort of delusion. I had recognized that sort of unattached to reality rage. I had recognized the patterns of those kind of loops where he's yelling about things that aren't even being discussed or talked about. I knew already that he just needed to sleep it off, clean up, sober up. And I thought we could. I remember I went to the fridge, I got out the steaks so that they would, be ready to cook. And I got out some of the food I was going to put together for dinner. I went upstairs. I don't know if I came back down in my nightgown at that point or if that was shortly after, but the next thing I remember is coming downstairs and looking for him. We had an interaction that I can't really describe. It didn't make a lot of sense to me. He was just belligerent, throwing things, screaming at me. And I realized I was back on the chopping block. I realized it was back. I realized that the arrows were pointed at me again. And I tried to defend myself. I was explaining, trying to say that.
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
It was not offered to prove the truth of the matter. She hasn't even said it yet. But try not to say what you're saying unless it needs it for context or something. Try to say what he's saying.
I'll sustain the objection.
Okay.
He was just belligerent. I don't know how to describe to you because it wasn't making sense. It wasn't making sense. I don't know how. I don't know how the immediate next string of the next part of the violence actually even initiated, but again, he has me up against the wall, and I remember this time he slams me up against the wall hard. I mean, I hit my head hard. And this is a wall next to I say kitchenette, but it's more of a bar. I remember there were these cooling fridges, and I remember kind of being slammed up against those. I remember pushing him off of me. I remember the name calling, the whore, the slut, the fat ass. I remember a lot of name calling. I said,
Had he been drinking by this time?
he was drinking.
Calls for speculation and leading.
I'll sustain as bleeding.
What, if any, drinks had you observed Mr. Depp have by this time?
Well, I had already seen him drink right in front of me. He took a big swig out of a wine bottle upstairs right in front of me as in a gesture of like looked right at me and took a big swig out of it as a like a show for did it right in my face to make a point. And then when I came downstairs, he was drinking from the bottle. I don't know what kind of liquor. I remember there was another bottle open, and I was wondering why he was drinking both. But at some point, he had me up against the wall next to the cooling fridges, and I remember slamming my head up against the thing. He had me by the neck, squeezing my neck, and it got really nasty. It went from like, oh, no one likes you, no one likes me, everyone warned me about you. That's what it was. He started to tell me that everyone had warned him about me, and that he wished he had never married me, wish he had never met me. No one liked me. It sounds childish, but I remember feeling really hurt. And then at some point I shoved him hard to get him off me, and he shoved me back and he said, "Do you want to go, little girl?" I couldn't, as I sit here today, tell you if that happened before he choked me up against the wall, but at some point I am in a struggle with him where I'm holding his shirt lapel, and he kind of just flings me, for lack of a better way to describe it, throws me across the room. I land on a games table. It's like a ping pong table. And I don't know if I was holding on to him or if he pursued me separate, but he gets on top of me on the games table and is just whacking me in the face, like repetitive. We struggle on the games table. I don't know how we get up. I don't know if he pulls me up. I wish I could tell you, but we were in this struggle down in this games room by the bar, and we had this conversation about the drinking, or argument about the drinking, and he holds up this bottle to me, and I'm saying, did you drink this whole thing? Something stupid, focusing on this detail, and he is telling me that I can't control him anymore, and that if I really wanted to try, take it. And then he's like taunting me to take the bottle from him. If I really want him to stop, why don't I take it from him? Go on. Kept saying, go on, and kind of gesturing with the bottle towards me. And he does that 2 or 3 times. I reach for it, he'd revoke it, kind of laugh at me. And he's holding out the bottle. I think like maybe the 3rd time or so I get a hold of it. I pick it up and I slam it down on the ground right in between us. There's a tile floor, a white tile floor. And I smashed the bottle on the floor. And that really set him off. So stupid. Sorry. It was like a light bulb switch went off. And he started screaming. I don't know if he backhanded me or hit me normally. I don't really recall, but I remember it sent me down to the ground. I remember by the time I picked myself off the floor, I stand up. He's got a bottle in his hand, and he threw it at me. It missed, thankfully, but I kind of pulled myself back into the bar area. I don't know how much time passed, but at some point he had a broken bottle up against my face, neck area by my jawline, and he told me he'd carve up my face. I don't know at what point in the evening. I couldn't tell you what sequence-wise when that happened, but it was terrifying. It wasn't the first time he said that to me. He said that to me on the plane as well. But this time he was holding a broken bottle to me. I honestly don't remember if I threw anything in his direction. I don't think I did. I just remember him having me by the nightgown. I remember him flailing me, throwing me around. I'm flailing. This is after there were some bottles broken on the floor. I think this is actually after, again, forgive me, I wish I could remember the sequence, but it's flashes. He's throwing these bottles at me. I remember retreating. There were also cans, like soda cans, beer or soda cans, and they're coming at me one after the other, and I keep pulling myself into the bar area. There's a bar behind me in like a, I don't know, like an L shape. He's standing in the only way you can exit, so I'm kind of trapped in front of this sink, surrounded by bar on 3 sides with him in front of me-ish, kind of front off to the left, and he's throwing these bottles one after the other, and I can feel glass breaking behind me. I remember feeling one of them go by my head really fast. I mean, a real velocity. I remember being terrified. I remember I couldn't move. I couldn't go anywhere. I eventually, he ran out of things to throw. I think that's how I moved myself towards the exit. And I believe that's most likely when we got kind of in this struggle by the bar area, because I remember my feet slipping on the tile as he was slamming me from the wall to the countertops. At one point, he has me up against the wall and he's punching the wall. He had my, nightgown, and it kind of ripped it off my chest. I remember at one point he's teasing me, taunting me that he has my breasts in his hands. My nightgown came completely off. It was ripped off of me. So I was naked, and I'm slipping around on this tile and trying to get my footing. And I remember slipping on this tile with glasses underneath me, and I remember just trying to get my footing. I felt really destabilized and felt really vulnerable. I'm naked. And he's flinging me around, and at some point, I'm up against the wall, and he's screaming at me that he fucking hates me, that I ruined his life. Remember, I ruined his life over and over. And he starts punching the wall next to my head, holding me by the neck. I get free from him. I kind of step back from him, and it's like his energy shifted to the phone. There's a wall-mounted phone on the wall next to where my head was, and he went from punching the wall to like realizing there was a phone there, and he picked up the phone and he's screaming. He's like at the top of his lungs, screaming, "I fucking hate you! I fucking hate you! You ruined my fucking life!" And screaming at the top of his lungs, he picks up the phone and starts bashing the phone against the wall where I was just being held. And I remember kind of having some distance on what was happening and watching him do this. And it was like his energy had shifted, and I was that phone all of a sudden. And he was just over and over again smashing this phone into the wall, over and over again, screaming at me. And I was watching the phone every single time he pulled his hand back. It was just breaking into pieces. I remember thinking this phone is disappearing, is smashing it to smithereens, just going into the wall. And at some point, he's on top of no phone, but screaming the same thing. I fucking hate you. You ruined my fucking life. I'm on the countertop. He had me by the neck. And he felt like he was on top of me. And I'm looking at him in his eyes. And I don't see him anymore. I don't see him anymore. It wasn't him. It was black. I've never been so scared in my life. It was black. I couldn't see him. And he was looking at me, and I was trying to get through to him. I was trying to say to him in some way that it was me. I was trying to get through to Johnny. And I couldn't see him. I couldn't see him at all. And my head was bashing against the back of the bar, and I couldn't breathe. And I remember trying to get up, and I was slipping on the glass. My feet were slipping, my arms were slipping on the countertop. And I remember just trying to get up so I could breathe, so I could tell him that he was really hurting me. I didn't think he knew what he was doing. I don't know how. Sorry. I'm sorry. I couldn't breathe. Please. I don't know. Please, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't get through to him. I couldn't get up. I couldn't get up. And I don't know how that ended. I don't know how. I don't know what happened next. I don't understand. The next thing I remember, I was bent over backwards on the bar, meaning my chest was up. I was staring at the blue lights, and my chest was on this. My back was on the countertops, and I thought he was punching me. I thought he was. I'm sorry. I felt this pressure. He on my pubic bone, and he thought he was punching me. I just saw his arm. I could feel his arm moving, and it looked like he was punching me. But I could just feel this pressure. It was like if it kept hitting him, it didn't feel pain. It was just a pressure on my pubic bone, and I don't know. I don't remember what I said. I just remember being really still, not wanting to move. I remember looking around the room. I remember looking at all the broken bottles, broken glass, And I remember just not wanting to move because I didn't know if it was broken. I didn't know if the bottle that he had inside me was broken. I couldn't feel it. I couldn't feel it. I didn't feel pain. I didn't feel pain. I didn't feel anything. I just didn't want it. I looked around and I saw so much broken glass that I didn't know if he would know. If he would know, I didn't know if he would know if it was broken or not. And I just remember thinking, please God, please, I hope it's not broken. I don't know how that ended. I don't know how I got off the countertop. I just remember it being in the bathroom. I remember retching. I remember the sound my voice was making. I remember I lost control of my bladder. I remember just retching. I remember there was some blood on the floor. I got up at some point. I don't know how that night ended. I don't remember what happened. I don't remember. I have a memory of him begging me not to leave. I remember going outside the front door. I remember him coming out to the front area, but I don't remember if that was before or after this. I don't remember. I just have that memory. I remember taking a bunch of sleeping pills. Not a bunch, like 2, which is a lot for me. I remember falling asleep, or I don't remember falling asleep, but I know I fell asleep because I woke up the next day. I assume it was late morning. I could hear him downstairs. I could hear Marilyn Manson music, not in person. I could hear the music. Maybe he said it was Marilyn, or maybe I could recognize it. I don't remember, but I became aware of it. That's what I was hearing. It was blaring. It became clear, obvious to me when I walked downstairs. He was still up. He hadn't gone to sleep again. I walked downstairs and I saw this brown on the walls going down the stairs. And the brown on the walls became clear, like lettering. And then it was obvious it was dried blood. He had written down this that we had a spiral staircase, like white cream walls. There was blood on the carpet. I could see blood drips. I thought it was from my arms or feet, but it was drips. So that plus the wall writing, I saw this brown letters on the wall, and then realized that he was trying, that it was meant to be a message, but it was incoherent. I saw what looked like my name, but I really couldn't make out most of the rest of the message. Walking down the stairs, I saw a bird in the house. I thought that was surreal. I went down to the main level where my painting studio was, and I had some canvases out. It was in the living room area. And by the time I got down to the bottom of the stairs, the dried blood had been kind of taken over by paint. It was blue, navy blue paint, and then brown paint. And then it was on the walls, on the lampshades, pillowcases of the sofa cushions. There was blood in the painting studio. My canvases had been covered with what looked like just brown, blue, green, red mess. It was just a mess. There was a painting that had, a painting that the owners had that had, like giant penis on it, and some other things. There was a table overturned, a bunch of broken glass on that floor. I walked downstairs where I heard the music coming from, and that's where I found him, blaring this music. He was in the study, which is by the bar games table area off to the side, and it was just glass and blood and broken window and just and I think he took them down or somehow showed me, and he said, "Look what you made me do. I did this for you," something to that effect. And I kind of put together, it was covered in paint, and I put together that's like he was using his finger. I quickly became aware that that's what he was using as a paintbrush, even though there was lots of paintbrushes around. And we didn't have any sort of like coherent conversation, as you can imagine. I figured out he was missing a finger. He kind of held it up, and I said, "What did you do? When? Like, what did you do? When?" And I realized in my head that there had been many hours since this probably happened, assuming that happened with the phone. And in any case, I knew it had been way too long, that he had this blood, that he was bleeding, and I said, "I'm going to call 911 if you don't call Jerry now." I still don't recall which of us called Jerry Judge, his security. At some point we went upstairs. He came upstairs, but he went up to the third floor while I was in the main floor, the entry level floor. I went to make him a cup of coffee because he was demanding more Red Bull. And I was thinking, that's probably not a good idea. I don't know why coffee would be so much better, but in my head it was. I thought maybe, I don't know, sober him up, or I don't know. The help was coming though. And I remember I made him coffee. As soon as I handed it to him, he threw it at the TV and started screaming again. It was like back to square one. Shortly after that, security arrives. I don't know how long, maybe a few seconds or minutes went by, not long, but they kind of find Johnny, or Johnny finds them walking out of the front door, and they were trying to figure out what was going on. And as they were kind of looking at him and trying to figure out what the heck was going on, Johnny took his penis out of his pants and started trying to pee or peeing outside of the house, saying that he had more messages for me. And this is in front of security. And they kind of just like looked at each other and looked at him and kind of not laughed, but kind of half, played it off and corralled him. It was how it looked. It looked like corralling a wild animal back into the house with his penis still out of his pants, peeing or trying to pee. That's what he was indicating. And he went to the wall of the house, and I remember him standing at the wall trying to leave me more, saying he had more information for me. He was gonna leave me more messages, more information for me. It made no sense. And Jerry Judge, his security, and one of the nurses. Shortly after, I think they put me in the theater room, but shortly after, I remember talking to one of the nurses, and she was trying to give me drugs to sedate
Objection,
me.
Your Honor. Hearsay.
Trying to give her drugs. She
Yeah,
didn't
overruled.
say anything. Thank
Okay.
you. Keep going.
And I just remember crying and rejecting what they were trying to give me and fighting with them about how much they were trying to give me. I felt like I needed to figure out what was happening with my life, what was happening with Johnny. I didn't know if he was okay. I didn't know. I actually had no idea, like, could this be something he could die from? If anything, just the drugs and the alcohol. I mean, that alone, I didn't, I just remember being scared and being in this theater room, this dark theater room, and not knowing what the heck was going on. I eventually was taken up to my room by one of the nurses, and I'm sorry, Debbie, and or suggesting I go up to my room. I went up to my room, and I took a quarter of what she was trying to get me to take, and I eventually fell asleep. I came back downstairs to look for my phone, which Johnny had picked up before security came in. He picked up my phone and said, "We're going to get to the bottom of this." And he wasn't making any sense at the time. Understandably, just different. Nothing made sense. But he picked up my phone and was saying, I'm going to prove this. We're going to get to this. We're going to get to the proof of this. Something to that effect. I don't remember his exact words. And he pushed record on my phone. I didn't actually at the time think that he had done that. I had no idea, but I did know that I didn't have my phone when I woke up and went downstairs to get it. It was dead. It was sitting out on the dining room table by where Jerry Judge was sitting. Jerry Judge was on the phone and talked to me, and I went back up to bed, took more of this sedative, and fell asleep. And then I think the next day, went to the closet and took out the clothes that he hadn't painted on. I guess when he went back upstairs, he had it looked like what he had done is dip his hand in a bucket of paint and just wiped it on my clothes. And he had picked up another portion of my clothes and put them in the bathtub. And I don't know if he added paint or if he just had touched them with paint, but it was this ugly navy blue brown paint. I packed what was packable, what hadn't been destroyed, and eventually left Australia with Ben King, who you met on the way there.
Let me stop you there because I want to ask you some more questions about those 3 days, and then we can talk about Ben King and going home. So, do you recall what bottle Mr. Depp was drinking from and then had that back and forth with you and you threw on the ground?
Objection, Your Honor. Compound. Leading.
Sustained.
Do you recall what the bottle was?
No, I don't.
Do you recall whether it was wine or liquor?
It was liquor. The wine was upstairs.
Do you recall what color
Excuse me.
it was?
Well, I believe it was white, clear, but I can't be certain. I think it was clear.
Do you remember whether it had a handle on it or not?
No, it was a normal bottle. I remember because he was holding it like this and gestured to me to take it. And I did try to reach for the bottle. It was a normal size, but for life of me, I can't remember what brand.
Okay. When you woke up that third morning and came out of your room, what, if any, food did you see?
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Objection, Your Honor. Leading.
Overruled.
There was mashed potatoes smeared all over the bedroom door, on the wall, in various places. But I remember opening the door and being really confused at first as to what it was. Had little like specks of green in it, I assumed to be spinach. And throughout the house, there was food rubbed in places, just countertops, walls, doors, as I mentioned. And later that evening, I found the raw meat that I had left out, the steak, all over the house. There were pieces of it. It was cut up. And he had ripped my nightgown into pieces, into shreds, and wrapped the meat up, like wrapped the steak pieces up with my nightgown. It was this really beautiful burgundy silk nightgown that had this black lace trim. I ironically got it from Dr. Kipper for a wedding gift. And it was wrapped, I found it, I continued to find it throughout the rest of the time that I was in the house in Australia. There's pieces of it in the microwave, pieces of it in the produce drawer, in the closet drawer. Just raw meat wrapped up in my nightgown, as well as the smeared food on the walls. It was bizarre.
What, if anything, do you recall seeing on any mirrors?
Oh, he had written on the bathroom mirrors in the bedroom, and I believe he had. There was another mirror. I just don't recall which bathroom it was in. I suppose it was the one that I went to, which is on the very bottom level, where I was retching, for lack of a better way to describe it. I think it was in that bathroom that he also wrote on that mirror as well.
What, if anything, do you recall?
In blood and in paint, sorry.
I'm sorry. What, if anything, do you recall of any lampshades being written on?
Well, he wrote on messages to me, things to the effect of go-getter, horror sort of thing, like that sort of language. But calling me easy, calling me a slut, calling me, like just things about ego and what a whore I was. But it was hard to make sense of it because it was clear he was just out of his mind. It was, he wrote on a back of a pillow in blood, and you can tell because it dries like in this ugly brown color. He wrote on the walls going downstairs. Like it took in fact, you could see where it looked like he had run out of blood because the messages became, the markings became clearly letters. And the letters kind of became, like I could see where he had clearly run out of blood or it wasn't bleeding enough and went and got paint. And then it became paint and blood. You could see both. You could see where he went back with it. Same with the mirrors. I could see where all the dried blood was. And then I could see a different set of markings with paint and some other material.
So I'm going to go back to the time in the bar, and I know this is very painful. Do you recall what Mr. Depp was saying to you when he had the bottle and was pushing it against your pubic bone?
He said that he would fucking kill me. I'll fucking kill you. He said it to me over and over again. He said, I'll fucking kill you.
Did you bleed from the vagina as well?
I did.
And did you experience any pain later?
I wasn't thinking about that. I was heartbroken. Eventually, I realized that I could be hurt because I was bleeding. But I convinced myself it wasn't broken and that the bottle wasn't broken, or else it would be a lot worse. And the discomfort I was feeling afterwards just paled in comparison to how scared, shocked I was. I'm scared. I just married this man. I just married him.
And forgive me for asking this, but I need to just make sure the record's clear. You were penetrated up the vagina into the pubic bone, is that correct?
Objection, Your Honor. Leading.
Sustained.
What, if any, penetration was there in your vagina? With the bottle.
I can't believe
I'm so sorry.
I do this.
I am so sorry.
Johnny had the bottle inside of me and was shoving it inside of me over and over again.
Did you experience any cuts on other parts of your body?
My forearms were cut. My bottoms of my feet were sliced up pretty good.
Did you have any other bruising or swelling?
I had bruises across my jaw, I suppose, from one of the many times he clocked me in the face downstairs. I think I just didn't make a record of anything else.
I'm going to ask you to turn to let's go to 1810. Well, actually, let's go to 1815. Michelle, if you can bring that up. Defendants 1815. And I think these are all in, Your Honor, so if we could publish.
Yes, they can all be published.
Is this the game table?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And is this, based on your testimony, is this where you were you on top of this table?
Yeah, that he briefly got on top of me, and was pushing on my throat, actually, at some point when I was on the table. I had forgotten about that. And this, though, looks like it is after a lot of the stuff was cleaned up, because it didn't look quite like this.
Okay. And did the table collapse?
Yes, it did.
Objection, Your Honor. Leading.
Sustained.
What, if anything, happened to the table?
The table collapsed underneath me when Johnny threw me into it and got on top of me, or fell on top of me. I honestly don't know which one.
We could look at 1816, please, defendants. Do you recognize this, what's depicted in this picture?
Yes,
What is it?
it looks like the bottles that were by Johnny on the desk when I came down that last morning, and he was still up, still drinking.
If we could go to defendants 1817.
The bottle shape.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I have not.
Go back to 1816, please.
Your Honor, I had fused. Is there a question?
I guess you want to ask a question.
What more do you recall?
Sorry, it took me a minute to respond because it's hard. It took me a minute to respond because I had not remembered seeing the bottle that Johnny was using on me. I didn't have a memory of seeing it. And this picture, I wasn't aware of until just the other day, yesterday, the day before. And I felt my stomach tighten up, like I was going to be sick when I saw it. Because even though I didn't remember seeing the bottle, what I had remembered is a pressure, like something square, which is why I thought he was punching me. I was feeling the square, something firm hitting me, like butting up against my pubic bone. Over and over again, I felt that pressure against my bone. It felt like a flat surface. But when I realized it was an object or bottle and not his fist, which is what I thought, because his arm, I could see his arm while he was holding me down, saying he was going to kill me, but I thought he was, his arm looked like he was punching me. And I hadn't seen this bottle. I didn't know. And then this came out in Ben's evidence because he didn't share it until this date.
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
And so I recognize it.
All right, now let's go to defendants 1817. Do you recognize this area or this picture?
Yes, it looks like one area of the bar. Obviously, this is sometime later because all the liquid is dried up. It's quite slippery. I was slipping all over that tile. That's how I know.
Okay.
Looks like a lot of the glass has been cleaned up almost.
Okay. And then let's go to 1818. Actually, I think
I'm sorry, which?
Yeah, I don't have that.
That's not in evidence.
Yeah, and that's a duplicate. Let's go to 1819. My apologies.
Okay.
Do you recognize this?
Yes, I do.
What is this?
This is close to where my feet were when I was dangling off the counter. When he had me on the countertop by my neck, my feet were slipping on the tile, and I just remember my feet. I remember feeling glass underneath my feet and slipping. I couldn't get up. I couldn't alleviate the pressure on my neck as he was crushing me. That's that's next to that. All the way at the end of the picture is the bar where I was standing when he was throwing bottles at me.
Can we go to 1820? Do you recognize what's depicted here? The area.
Yes, that's to the left would be where the wall-mounted phone was. Right to the left of that. To the right of that is the little L-shaped bar that I was telling you about, where I was trapped. And
when you say to the left of the wall,
I'm
what do you
sorry.
mean? Is it off the picture or on the picture?
So if you're looking at this picture, imagine up and to the left at person height, at site height, was like a I don't know if it was antique, but it kind of looked old-fashioned, like an old-fashioned heavy. It looked heavy. I didn't pick up the receiver, but it looked heavy when I was watching it break. You know, it looked like these like really heavy glass. Excuse me. It's really thick, heavy, not plastic, but like a Bakelite or something heavy material on it. That's my best guess. So that would have been to the left, and then to the right would have been the very end of the bar that you just saw a picture of.
All right, let's go to 1821, defendants. And do you recognize what's depicted in this photo?
Yes, that's the bar that I was just talking about.
Okay. Now, I see a phone on the right side. Is that the phone you were talking about?
No, that's not. This is a wall-mounted phone. That's just a landline.
And you see straight ahead at the very, if you look straight ahead at the picture, on the top part of that, it appears to be some broken glass. Do you recall, what do you recall of that?
I recall more than just this window being broken. This is one of the windows that he broke when he was throwing things at me. My body was standing in front of that little kitchen sink you see at the end of the picture. I suppose that's some of the glass I felt though on the backs of my arms. Like when the window shattered.
Okay. Let's go to 1822.
1822, I don't have in evidence. 1822 is not in evidence.
My apologies. That's exactly why I just went over here. Let's go to 1825, I think. Is that the next one, Your Honor?
1825 is in evidence.
Okay. Do you recognize this picture?
Yes, that's where Johnny was standing when I found him the last morning. That morning, it might have been like midday. When I say morning, it was after I woke up. It was certainly not early morning. And he was standing at that desk, behind the desk, with the Manson blaring. When I found him and told him that I was going to call 911 if he didn't call Jerry.
If you look in this picture, there appears to be a lampshade down below. Do you recognize that lampshade down below the table?
That's one of the lampshades Johnny wrote threats or messages to me on.
Okay. Then let's go to 1827. Do you recognize this?
Yes, I do. That's my painting studio. So when I walked downstairs and saw all the blood on the walls, I walked into this room first. That's where the stairs empty into this room, and kind of my painting area. And those are the canvases that he repainted.
And do you see, if you look by the white tablecloth table to the right of that, do you see a lampshade there?
Yes, I don't know if that's the same lampshade or another one.
Okay. Then let's go to 1828. And do you recognize what's in that one?
I do. Those are were my paintings. That I don't know when he did that, if it was before or after the writing on the walls, but he just ruined them.
So I just want to make sure. So the painting canvas that's dark colored, there's two of them there.
Well, there's two or three, and then there's a smaller one in the center, and That was his daughter. I was trying to paint a portrait of, and that was untouched.
Okay, and then, but just so we're clear, the one directly in front of you that looks like it's just a lot of dark colors, was that dark colors before, or?
Objection, Your Honor, leading.
I said, was that dark colors before?
I'll sustain the objection.
What, if any, change was there on that canvas?
Oh, I'm a terrible painter, but I'm not that bad. That was not my painting. It was the start of a portrait, and he changed it dramatically.
And then to the right side, on the other side of, more to the right than the one you already testified to, is that what that picture looked like before, or is that?
Objection, leading.
What, if any, changes were there to that picture?
Well, the three canvases were portraits, so they looked similar to the one that's in the center that I was doing of his daughter.
Okay. And the white that's below, what, if any, changes were there to that? The white canvas that you see there?
It just looks like the painting was, it looks like once he destroyed.
Objection calls for speculation.
All right, sustain.
Was there anyone else in the house besides Mr. Depp and you?
Not that I know of, no, and no one was around.
Okay. Do you have any reason to believe somebody other than Mr. Depp did this?
Objection, leading.
Sustain.
What if any reason do you believe that Mr. Depp did this?
Objection.
That was not. What if any?
What's the
Leading.
No, I'll overrule that objection.
Thank you.
It was just Johnny and I in that house over the course of those 3 days, roughly. There might have been somebody, his assistant or something, come on the first day or second day, I can't recall, but for the majority of for the entirety of what I've been describing to you, it was Johnny and I in that house.
And did you do any of this? Did you
No.
create any of this damage?
No.
I'm also gonna take a look at the white tablecloth to the right there.
And also, Johnny was covered in paint, so to answer your question fully, that's also how I know.
All right. So I'm also just going to draw your attention to that white tablecloth over there. Does it appear to have some paint on that as well?
Yes, there was paint all over the place, to say it plainly.
Now, the painting that you indicated there was a large penis, I believe. Where was that?
I believe it was just like if you're looking at this, I believe it was on the wall almost right next to the painting directly center that we're looking at. That's my best recollection, but I can't be entirely sure.
Okay. Let's go to 1828.
I think that was 1828.
Oh, 1829, my apologies. And do you recognize this photo?
Yes, I do.
Wasn't it? And what was this?
This is one of the lampshades that Johnny chose as a medium to leave me messages in blood and paint.
Okay. Let's go to 1830. Do you recognize this?
Yes, that's one of the bathroom mirrors.
Okay. And if you could just look to the left, and I'm going to go ahead and circle it over here. You see red and black there. Would you agree?
Yes.
Okay. And there were some questions that were asked earlier about that red. What, if anything, did you write on this mirror?
I didn't write anything on the mirrors. I was as confused as anyone in hearing that testimony.
And based on looking at this area that I have circled, is the black on top or underneath the red?
Objection, Your Honor. Calls for speculation, leading.
I'll sustain the objection. Right, this might be a good time to take a break. Why don't we go ahead and take our afternoon break, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go ahead and have our break. Do not discuss the testimony with anybody, and don't do any outside research. We'll come back here. All right, in 15 minutes. All right, so we'll come back at 4:02. Okay?
Thank you.
All right, thank you.